And a bunch of people like this book. And I want to say the problem is me, but honestly it's not. It's the book. Okay, so first of all, I apologize if you can hear the wind because today is crazy windy, and then also because of that the trees are going crazy, so the lighting is going to be really terrible, but this is what we have to work with, so I'm sorry. Okay, so we're doing my monthly wrap-up in TBR, which I always love filming, and I actually ended up reading way more than I thought I would. I didn't read that much in page count, but I did read a lot more than I was expecting, and I'm super excited to talk to you about all the things I read because I loved most of them. So let's get into it. I ended up reading technically 11 things, but 9 out of those were manga volumes. So in terms of page count, I didn't read that much, I'm sure. I didn't count it, but I'm sure I didn't read that much in terms of page count. It just seems like I read a lot in terms of number of books, but it was just 9 manga volumes and also 2 romance books. Okay, so getting into it, I started my month by reading the first 8 volumes of Tomodachi Game, and this is like a thriller manga series, and the anime was coming out. Maybe it's finished by now, I don't know, but it was coming out as well. So basically, our main character, his name is Yuichi, and he has grown up pretty poor, and so he really values money, but he has been taught that friendship is even more important than money. And so at the beginning of the story, he is trying to collect money to go with his friends on a school field trip because he promised them that he would, even though he doesn't really have the money for it, so he's working hard to collect the money. But once the entire class's money for the trip is collected, it ends up being stolen. And so the suspicion ends up falling on Yuichi's friends. And then later on, they end up all getting kidnapped, so his closest group of friends and him, they get kidnapped and put into this Tomodachi game. And so basically what this means is that one of them in their group of friends has a very huge money debt. And so by putting them into the Tomodachi game, they all ended up getting the debt divided between them. And so they need to play a bunch of different games in order to pay off the debt. But this means that they don't know who entered them into the game and why they have a huge debt. And so it all creates a bunch of suspicion. And the thing is that because Tomodachi Game is about friendship, you're supposed to not suspect your friend. You're supposed to always believe in them and always try to protect them and fight for them. But the games are designed in the way that they will make you suspect your friends and create grudges and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the setup, and it's a very typical setup. I've seen this done before. It reminds me a lot of Alice in Borderland, with the exception that in Alice in Borderland the games are deadly, and in Tomodachi Game the games are about money. But there's also Liar Game, which I watched the live action for, and Liar Game is all about money, and it's really fun to see the characters trying to deceive the other contestants to win the games. And Tomodachi Game is not so much about deceiving other contestants as it is about trying to beat the game, because the games always have a catch. And so basically we're following our main character as he's trying to win these games and trying to at the same time find out more information about the people that created Tomodachi Game and who is involved in that, how it works, because he wants to take them down. So I don't know, I was just having a great time with it, clearly because I read a bunch from it. It's just super exciting and addictive. You know how these things go. But I do like the main character a lot. I think that's the good thing about Tomodachi Game, because the setup isn't foreign to me, but I do like the main character a lot, especially in comparison to Alice in Borderland. To me, that was where that failed. I'm talking about this as if you know what Alice in Borderland is, but anyway, the setup is similar, but in there I don't really like the characters, whereas here I don't necessarily love the characters, but I do really find the main character interesting. And I do like some of his friends, and the games are really, really interesting. I do have an issue, though, with these types of stories where usually the justification of why these things are happening, usually that justification isn't satisfying for me. And so I'm enjoying myself a lot, but I'm wary of where this is going, and I'm wary of the justification behind the Tomodachi Game, but the game itself and the games and the characters, it's all very compelling and interesting, and I really want to keep going with this series. Okay, so next up, I finished The Score by Elle Kennedy, and I did a reading vlog about this book with and without spoilers, so if you want my in-depth thoughts on it, you can go watch the vlog. I will link it in the cards up there. But basically, this is the third book in the Off-Campus series. This is a college sports romance series. In this one, we're following Dean and Allie, and the trope for this one is essentially the one-night stand, friends with benefits trope. Allie is a character who always wanted to be an actress, and right now she isn't sure about what type of jobs she wants to do, and on top of that, she broke up with her boyfriend of 3 years in the beginning of the story, and so she's feeling very lost, and she ends up, through a set of circumstances, she ends up sleeping with Dean. And Dean, if you have read the other books in the series, you know that Dean is like a ladies' man, but he ends up not being able to forget Allie after this, and Allie tries to resist, but she can't really forget him either, and so they end up engaging in a friends with benefits type situation. This book doesn't really have much of a plot. It's really much more about the two characters and their relationships, but you do get a better look into who Dean is and his life, and Allie as well, and I really appreciated that. I think that Elle Kennedy, all the themes that were explored with this book, Elle Kennedy explored them really well, and the best part for me was the relationship itself. I think that Dean and Allie they are my favorite couple so far of the series. This isn't my favorite book in the series, but in terms of the couple itself, I think they make a lot of sense together, and I really liked every scene that we got with them. I think the pacing is a bit off. The beginning of the book is pretty slow, but then halfway through it picks up and it gets exciting. And I also really, really enjoyed the steamy scenes in this one, if you're interested in that. I don't know. I just had an overall really good time with this book. It wasn't anything mind-blowing, but I did really enjoy it, and I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So I don't know. It was just a great time, and it was super, super fun. It was an incredibly fun and happy book until the climax. But overall, the book just made me happy, and I do really highly recommend this series. Okay, so now to talk about the only book that I read this month that I did not like. It was Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is a very popular book, and I was super excited about it because it sounded right up my alley, and I was so incredibly disappointed. And a bunch of people like this book, and I want to say the problem is me, but honestly it's not. It's the book. This had issues on so many levels, I don't even know where to start. Okay. Let me first tell you what this is about. So, this is a romance, but not really. It's more women's fiction than romance. But anyway, it is a childhood friends to lovers second chance romance, if you can call it that. And you're following Macy. Macy is our protagonist, and the love interest is Elliot. And you have two types of chapters. You have chapters in the past, and you have chapters in the present. And in the past, you're seeing that Macy and her father bought a vacation house. And that's where Macy and Elliot met, because Elliot was Macy's neighbor. And they met, they became friends, and then eventually started having feelings for each other. And that's what you're seeing in the flashbacks. And then in present time, you realize that Macy and Elliot had a falling out and haven't talked in 11 years. 11 years, remember that. And now in present time, they're meeting again, and they're starting to be a part of each other's life again. Okay, that's the setup, right? And it sounds cute. It wasn't. Oh my god, I really don't want to be mean, but I don't really have a lot of good to say about this book. Okay, so I like the flashback chapters. For the most part, they were the best part of the book. And, seeing Macy and Elliot develop their relationship was really sweet, because it was just a very innocent relationship. They were 13 when they met. And so it was just very sweet, because they met, they became friends, and then eventually started realizing, oh wait, we kind of feel a bit more. It was a slow burn, so it was sweet to see. But I just didn't like Macy, and we're always in her head. We don't have Elliot's POV, and Macy is just really annoying, to be honest. And a lot of the things that she did to me were nonsensical. I think that the book is poorly structured, because the reasoning as to why Macy and Elliot haven't talked for 11 years to me, doesn't make sense. And then the reason why they're not together in present time, once they meet again, is because despite the fact that they still love each other, Macy is engaged. But the thing is, and this is not a spoiler, Macy has only been dating her fiancé for 2 months. They don't know each other. And so basically what I'm trying to say is that there is no actual conflict in this book, but the authors tried really, really hard to make you believe that everything that Macy is doing makes sense, and to me, it never did. There is no conflict in this book. There is no reason why Macy and Elliot shouldn't be together. And so because of that, I did enjoy like the first 20% of the book, but then after that, it just went downhill. Because I was reading a book with a nonsensical conflict, in my opinion, a conflict that doesn't really exist, to be quite honest. And the other thing that the book does that I really, really don't like is that the book hides from you the reason why Macy and Elliot had a falling out for most of the book, which means that this story is creating certain expectations in you. And once you find out why they didn't talk for so long despite the fact that they loved each other, it was super disappointing as well. It didn't make sense as well. Again. So I don't know. There are a lot of issues in this book, in my opinion, but I can't really dissect my thoughts that well without spoiling the book. So this is as far as I'm gonna go, but I like the first 20%. The flashbacks were okay for the most part. I think the writing is good, but the book has no reason to exist because there is no conflict, really. And then a lot of the characters that are presented to us don't do that much in the story. And Elliot, to me, was the best part of the book, but he ended up just being there to serve Macy's character growth, if you can even call it that, because Macy, wow, she's a terrible protagonist, okay? I just don't like her, I'm sorry. And Elliot ended up being there just to serve her character arc, and I didn't appreciate that, and he ended up being fairly bland as a result as well. But Tiny Macy and Tiny Elliot were cute, and I did really like that. And I also liked how in the flashbacks, Christine and Lauren, they explored grief through Macy, because Macy, you learn in the beginning of the story that she lost her mom. And so one of the things that this book is discussing is grief, and I did like that, and I did feel for Macy in the flashbacks. But again, I just didn't like anything that happened in the present. The reason why they're not talking is terrible, and frankly, I don't understand why people like this book that much, but you know, not judging. It wasn't for me, and I'm super disappointed and sad, frankly, because I love friends to lovers. It's my favorite romance trope, and if they are childhood friends to lovers, I love it even more. And it was just disappointing, but I don't think it was a childhood friends to lovers. I think it was a second chance that I didn't like. So anyway, it was just super disappointing, but I did buddy read this book with a friend, so that was super exciting. I had a great time reading it, honestly, because it read fast, and it made me laugh because it was so ridiculous. But anyway, I did have a good time reading it, I just didn't enjoy it. And then the last thing that I read was the first volume of Takane Hana, which I really, really enjoyed. So this is a romance manga, and it follows Takane and Hana, obviously. And what happens is that Takane, he's our love interest. He is the heir to a really huge business in Japan, and his grandfather, who owns the business, he ends up setting up a date for Takane with Hana's sister. And this date is supposed to eventually lead to a marriage of convenience. But Hana's sister, who is older than her, has a boyfriend and doesn't want to go. And so Hana ends up having to go in her sister's place. And it goes really poorly. But Takane takes a liking to Hana anyways, because he's a very, arrogant businessman who doesn't really know how to act around people and how to show his emotions. But Hana doesn't let him get away with his attitude, and she makes her opinions known. And she also is she's not poor, but she doesn't have a lot of money, so there's that difference in class as well, which is really funny because Takane is just used to having a bunch of money and access to a bunch of things that normal people don't. And so he basically just starts taking Hana on a bunch of dates and buying her super expensive stuff, taking her to a bunch of expensive places. And honestly, the best part of this is the characters. The author in the beginning of the volume says that she tried to do a story based off of characters' personalities, and I really think that's what she did. And seeing the clash of personalities between these two is incredibly fun, but then they weirdly work really well together. So that's another really interesting thing to see, and I just love them. Honestly, I fell in love with these two, and I can't wait to read more of this. The art style is really cute as well. I really enjoyed it, and it was just a good time. It was laugh out loud funny. I loved it, okay? I had a great time and I can't wait to keep reading. Okay, so now it's time for my June TBR, and in June there's going to be a month-long readathon called the whateverthon, and I'm going to link the announcement for it in the description if you don't know anything about it. But basically this readathon just exists to make you read a bit more. You can read whatever you want, you don't even need to use prompts, but I'm actually going to use the bingo board, and I'm going to put the bingo board on the screen and show you the prompts that I'm going to try to fulfill. I want to fulfill at least one bingo row, and then there's an extra prompt that I want to go for. And I'm honestly probably not going to complete this, but you know, it's just for fun and I'm excited about these books, so let me tell you about them. Okay, so in this readathon there are different teams, and different teams have slightly different prompts, and I chose the beach readers, so this is the bingo board for the beach readers. Okay, so the first prompt that I'm going to try to complete is the recently hauled prompt, and for that I chose the book City of Lies by Sam Hawke. This is an adult fantasy book, and I'm super excited about it. From the books that I bought recently, this is the one that I'm most excited about, and I can't wait to read it. I'm so excited about the fact that I'm finally trying to make time to read it this month. And again, I like to go into my books without knowing a lot, but I'm going to put on the screen a snippet from Robin Hobb's review of it on Goodreads, because honestly, it says everything that I need in order to be excited about it. So Hobb said, "Are you tired of books about assassins? Noble assassins, sociopath assassins, assassins you'd like to date, etc. Have you wondered about the flip side of that coin? Who guards against assassins? Who would be in a position to thwart the ones eager to put the Chancellor into the ground?" So I don't know, that's all I need to know about this. I know that one of the main characters works with poisons, and I also know that the second main character is his sister, so there's a sibling bond, which I really appreciate, and I'm super excited about this. And speaking of Robin Hobb, the second book that I want to read this month for this readathon is Ship of Magic, and this is the first book in the Life Ship Traders trilogy and the fourth book in the Realm of the Elderling series, and it is for the prompt reading a book in your favorite genre, so fantasy. Obviously, I don't know a lot about this book. I do know that it has ships and nautical stuff, which I don't usually enjoy, but I love Robin Hobb's writing style, so I'm super excited about it. And then for the one-word title prompt as well as the indie/self-published prompt, I'm going to be reading Wildcat by J.P. Harker. I'm super excited about this because it seems to be very character-focused on our main character, Rhea. And I'm just going to read the synopsis to you, and hopefully you'll be intrigued by it as well. So the synopsis says, Rhea is conflicted about giving up a warrior's life to become a wife and mother, but her love for her new husband is enough to at least make her consider it. However, with the conquering Gaians moving ever closer to her homeland, a peaceful life may no longer be an option, for Rhea or for any of her people. With rival tribes, old suitors, and the dangerous General Lepidus to contend with, Rhea soon finds her new family in unprecedented danger, and her choices now must be about more than just herself. Wildcat takes place in a fantasy land inspired by Iron Age Britain and follows Rhea's story as she encounters a civilization unlike any she could imagine, and is constantly forced to learn and adapt through trial after deadly trial. It sounds super exciting to me, and I can't wait to read it. And then I have another prompt that I want to try to fulfill just because I love the prompt so much. It's the summer thriller prompt because it just gives me summer camp slasher flick vibes, and I love that. And so I'm probably going to be reading The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager for that one, and I'm super excited. And then last but not least, this book, it's not for whateverthon, but I'm going to try to read it because it's a buddy read. I might not get to it, but it's Neverworld Wake by Marisha Passel. I have had this book on my TBR for a long time. I think it's a YA thriller mystery, maybe. And I don't know. I've had it on my TBR for a long time, and I can't wait to read it. Okay, so that's it. Those were all the books that I read in May and all the books that I'm hoping to read in June, which probably won't happen because there are a lot of chunky fantasies in there. But I don't know, I'm super excited about all of these. If you have read any of these, please let me know what you thought of them in the comments, or if there are any of these that I made you want to read. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!